I heard my daughter whisper it before I even stepped into the room. She doesn't have much time left. I froze mid-step, the words stabbing through me sharper than any winter wind. The kitchen smelled of coffee and toast, ordinary and comforting, but suddenly it wasn't. Something in that whisper shattered the morning, a quiet, deadly weight pressing against my chest. I gripped the edge of the counter, feeling the worn wood beneath my fingers, rough and grounding, and tried to breathe through the panic that suddenly seemed to claw at me. I didn't move. I just listened. The hum of the refrigerator, the faint ticking of the wall clock, even the soft sigh of wind brushing the curtains, it all became unbearably loud. And there she was, my daughter, speaking words meant to be private, words I wasn't ready to hear. "Mom?" Her voice, hesitant, closer now, drew me from the haze of fear. I saw her standing by the doorway, hands clasped, shoulders tight, eyes fixed on some point beyond me. She looked like she was carrying the weight of the world, and maybe she was. "What is it?" I asked, my voice trembling despite my best attempt at calm. She swallowed hard, lips quivering. "It's Grandma. She's not going to be around much longer." My heart stumbled. My knees threatened to buckle, but I held myself upright. The woman who had baked bread for decades, hummed lullabies I still remembered, who had tucked me in when I was sick, was fragile in ways I had never fully acknowledged. Hearing her imminent absence spoken aloud was like stepping off the edge of a cliff I didn't know was there. "No," I whispered, almost as if saying it louder could push back reality. "Not her. She's strong." "She is," my daughter said softly, tears glinting in her eyes. "But the doctor." "Mom, they said she doesn't have much time left." I wanted to scream, to argue, to do anything to make those words vanish. But all I could do was clutch my daughter's hands, feel their warmth, and anchor myself in her presence. For a long moment, silence stretched between us. Then I realized I had to act, that despair wouldn't help anyone. "We need to see her," I said finally. "Now." We moved through the house cautiously, the floorboards creaking underfoot. The garden outside glowed with morning sun, dew catching on petals, painting rainbows across the edges of roses I had planted decades ago. Everything looked beautiful and ordinary, yet nothing felt normal anymore. I opened the living room door, and there she was, seated in her favorite chair, sunlight spilling over her silver hair, turning it gold. She looked at me and smiled faintly, the kind of smile that had always made me feel at home, yet now it felt fragile, tentative. "Good morning," she said softly, her voice carrying the familiar warmth I had always cherished. I swallowed back the lump in my throat, forcing a smile. "Good morning. How are you feeling?" She shrugged, a small, weary gesture. "As well as one can, I suppose. But it's been a long morning." I brought her tea, setting it carefully on the side table. The steam rose slowly, carrying the scent of chamomile and honey, a simple comfort. I took her hand, feeling the thinness of her skin, the warmth that remained despite everything. We sipped quietly at first, listening to the ordinary sounds of the house, the distant hum of the fridge, the ticking of the clock, the soft rustle of leaves outside. And yet, beneath it all, I could feel the tension, the unspoken dread that hung in the air like a shadow. "I overheard the doctor," my daughter said finally, sitting on the arm of the sofa, tracing absent-minded patterns on the fabric. "I didn't want you to find out like this." "I'm sorry." I nodded, squeezing her hands. "It's all right. I just need to know so I can be here. That's all." My mind drifted to memories of my mother-in-law, long afternoons spent in her kitchen while she hummed quietly, evenings curled up with blankets and stories, the smell of her perfume mingling with the scent of old books. Every moment felt precious now, a fragile thread I wanted to hold on to. I watched my daughter carefully, seeing the worry and fear etched on her face. She had grown up in this house, surrounded by love, yet now the world seemed to tilt under her feet. She was carrying the same helplessness I felt, but trying desperately to hide it, to make life feel safe despite the looming shadow. We spent the morning quietly together, sharing small talk, laughter, and memories. I watched my mother-in-law's hands as she stirred her tea, marveling at the strength they had shown over decades. The faint tremor now was a stark reminder of the passage of time, of how delicate life had become. At one point, my mother-in-law reached over and touched my hand. "I know," she said softly. "I felt it coming, the change. But I'm glad you're here." I blinked back tears. "We're all here," I whispered. "Every moment, every memory, we'll share them. And we'll keep making more, even if the hours are short." She smiled, eyes glimmering with unshed tears. That's all I could ever ask for. The room was quiet again, but the air felt charged, heavy with the realization that time was no longer something we could take for granted. I thought of the ordinary things we had ignored, sunlight spilling across the floor, the scent of freshly brewed coffee, the gentle rustle of curtains in the morning breeze. Now each detail felt magnified, urgent. I remembered my own mother, how she had aged in small, imperceptible ways, how love had persisted even as the body weakened. And now, I was watching someone I loved approach the same horizon, feeling the bitter, slow ache of helplessness. My daughter spoke again, softly, almost a whisper, "We need to make the most of this time." I nodded, the weight of those words pressing against me. How do you measure moments when the end is inevitable? How do you pack love and memory into hours that feel too few? I decided then to focus on presence. Every smile, every word, every hand held would matter more than the fear that gripped us. I would notice the warmth of her hands, the soft texture of her hair, the comfort of familiar scents. I would carry the knowledge of these moments into tomorrow, even if tomorrow brought grief. And so we spent the morning together, quietly building a mosaic of memory, small fragments of laughter, stories, tea shared across sunlit silence. Each moment felt sacred, charged with unspoken understanding. We weren't just existing in the house, we were bearing witness to life, fragile yet beautiful, fleeting yet eternal in the small, ordinary details. As the sunlight shifted, casting long shadows across the floor, I made a silent promise: I would hold every second with her close, cherish each conversation, each touch, each laugh. Even when fear tried to creep in, even when sorrow threatened, I would remain present, fiercely and tenderly. Because that is what family does. We hold each other. We live fully in every heartbeat, even when life feels too short, even when the future is uncertain. And I would not let fear steal these hours. Love, I realized, was not measured in time but in attention, in presence, in the quiet courage to stay and witness, to breathe alongside those we care for. And today, this morning, I chose to love fully, without hesitation, without reservation, and to let the moments, fragile, fleeting, precious, carry us forward. We stayed there for a long while, sipping tea in silence. The sun had moved higher, cutting brighter stripes across the living room floor. I could see the dust motes dancing in the light, tiny particles of time itself, suspended, fragile, impossible to catch. My daughter sat on the arm of the sofa, tracing patterns in the fabric again, and I watched her, remembering the little girl who used to press her hands against my face and giggle when I made funny voices. Now, her hands were grown, her laughter more measured, carrying the weight of adulthood. I reached over and brushed a stray hair from her face. "Do you remember," I said softly, "how you used to sneak into Grandma's kitchen when you thought no one was looking?" She looked at me, a faint smile breaking through her tension. "I do." "You mean the time I tried to make cookies by myself and almost set the oven on fire?" I chuckled, though it came out thick with emotion. "Yes." "And do you remember the way she didn't scold you, but just held your hands and showed you how to mix the batter properly?" Her smile faltered slightly. I remember. I remember her patience, her gentleness. That word, gentleness, hung in the room. I could almost feel the warmth of my mother-in-law's presence, radiating from her chair. And yet, the whisper of urgency was never far, gnawing at the edges of our comfort. I could see the fear in my daughter's eyes, thinly masked by smiles and small talk, the dread she tried not to voice. "She's always been strong," I murmured, more to myself than to anyone else. But strength isn't about being unbreakable. Sometimes it's just about sitting still and letting the world pass through you, letting life carry its weight while you hold on. My daughter nodded slowly, gripping her knees as she leaned forward. I hate that I overheard. I hate knowing this before it was my place to know." "You overheard because you were meant to," I said. "Sometimes, life tells us things in ways we don't expect. It's not always polite, but it's necessary. And now, we can act. We can be here, with her. That's what matters." The conversation seemed to settle the tension for a moment, though it didn't erase the underlying fear. My mother-in-law, sensing our unease, reached for my hand again. "You don't need to be afraid," she said, her voice frail but steady. "I've had a long life, a full one. You've all given me more than I could ever ask for. But it's true, time is shorter now. That's just how it is." I pressed her hand to my lips. "We just want to be with you. Every moment, however small, we want to share it." She smiled, eyes glimmering. "Then that's what we'll do. We'll be together. That's all I could ever want." The morning stretched on. We moved slowly, intentionally, as if prolonging every small action could somehow push back the inevitable. I helped her from her chair to the window, letting her lean against the sill as she looked out over the garden. The roses were in bloom, brilliant reds and soft yellows, and a gentle breeze carried the scent through the open window. She inhaled deeply, and I saw her shoulders relax just a fraction. "You always loved these roses," I said. "Even when we were too busy to notice them." She chuckled softly. "I did. They remind me of you, Mom, and of all the times we've been together. They remind me of life, even when it's hard." I felt a lump form in my throat. "Life is always hard," I said, "but it's also beautiful. And love makes the difficulty worthwhile. That's what I've learned." She turned to me then, her eyes shining with something I couldn't name: fear, sorrow, gratitude, perhaps all three. "I just don't want to lose her. Not yet." I hugged her, feeling the warmth of her body, the pulse beneath her hands. "None of us do," I whispered. "But we can't stop time. We can only hold each other as tightly as we can and be present while we still have these hours. That's all." We spent the rest of the morning telling stories, reminiscing about family, laughter occasionally puncturing the quiet. I could see my mother-in-law's eyes light up at familiar names, remembered adventures, small victories, and mischiefs of our collective past. Each tale seemed to stretch the hours, make them more tangible, more ours. At one point, she paused, eyes misty, and said, "Do you remember the time we got caught in that thunderstorm during our picnic?" "Oh yes," I said, smiling at the memory. "You told us we'd dry off by the lake, and instead, we were soaked for hours, but we laughed the entire time." "That's right," she said softly. "And that laughter, it's still here. You carry it with you. That's how love survives, through memory, through small moments." I glanced at my daughter. She was crying quietly, dabbing at her cheeks with a tissue. I reached over, squeezing her hand. "It's okay," I said. "Let it out. There's no shame in grief or in fear. There's only life, and we're living it, together." As the day progressed, I found myself noticing details I had taken for granted. The way the sunlight fell on the wooden floor, the faint creak of the house settling, the soft ticking of the clock, the rustle of leaves outside. Every sound, every texture felt amplified, as if the universe wanted us to remember, to savor these fleeting moments. By mid-afternoon, we were all quieter, the energy of morning giving way to reflection. My daughter and I sat beside my mother-in-law, holding her hands, tracing the lines that told stories of decades of work, love, and survival. I felt a deep reverence, a mix of awe and sorrow. Life had been generous, and yet it was finite. We had to honor it while we could. She's always been the heart of this family, my daughter whispered to me, leaning close. I don't know how we'll go on without her. I held her close. We'll go on, because that's what families do. We carry the hearts of those we love inside us, even when they're gone. And she'll always be here, in every story, every smile, every lesson she's passed on. We spent the evening in a gentle rhythm. Tea refilled, blankets arranged, small conversations drifting around the room. I watched my mother-in-law as she spoke softly to my daughter, giving advice, offering comfort, sharing small fragments of wisdom. Every gesture, every word, seemed infused with the quiet power of someone who knew her time was short but refused to let that dim her presence. When night fell, we lit a few candles, letting their flickering glow fill the corners of the room. The house felt intimate, warm, protective. We shared memories, laughter, and tears, and in that space, the whisper of inevitability seemed slightly less sharp, slightly more bearable. At one point, I sat back and observed them both, my daughter, my mother-in-law, and I felt the weight of generations. Love, worry, joy, and grief intertwined, each pulse of the heart a thread in a tapestry we all contributed to. It struck me how fragile yet resilient life was, how every moment held the potential to become a memory we would treasure forever. And as I held my mother-in-law's hand, feeling its warmth despite the thinning skin and fading strength, I realized the truth that had been quietly settling in my heart all day. The whisper I had overheard was not just a warning. It was a call. A call to witness, to be present, to love fiercely while we still could. And that, I understood, was the greatest gift of all. Because when life is uncertain, when time feels short, it is not the grand gestures but the quiet presence, the steady hand, the shared story that matters most. And in this room, surrounded by the ones I loved, I knew we were giving each other that gift. Even as the night deepened, I felt a small, steady comfort. Tomorrow was unknown. We could not control it. But tonight, here, in this fragile, fleeting moment, we had everything we needed. Love, presence, and memory. And that, I told myself, would have to be enough. The night had grown quiet, except for the soft flicker of candlelight and the distant hum of the street beyond our window. I stayed up longer than the others, sitting in the living room, my mother-in-law asleep in her chair and my daughter curled up on the sofa, a blanket draped over her shoulders. The room smelled faintly of lavender from the sachets my mother-in-law always kept in the drawers, comforting and familiar. I couldn't shake the words I had overheard, the whisper that had shattered the morning, she doesn't have much time left. I leaned back in my chair, listening to the faint creaks of the house as it settled into night. My thoughts wandered, as they always did, drifting between memory and fear. I thought of the years I had spent with my mother-in-law, the lessons she had taught me without ever speaking them directly, the quiet courage of facing life's difficulties, the patience to listen even when you wanted to shout, the warmth in her laughter that could fill the coldest rooms. And now, faced with her vulnerability, I felt a mixture of awe and helplessness, an ache I couldn't name. The morning had been a delicate balance of hope and fear, laughter and tears. I wondered how much longer I could maintain that balance, how long before the whisper became reality, unavoidable and final. And yet, even in the shadow of that uncertainty, I felt a strange kind of determination rising within me. I would not allow fear to overshadow our time together. I would hold them both, my daughter and my mother-in-law, close, in body and in spirit, until the hours slipped through our fingers. Morning arrived softly, the sunlight gentle against the curtains. My mother-in-law stirred, and I helped her from her chair, steadying her with my hands. She looked up at me with a small smile, the kind that had always made the world feel safe. "Good morning," she said, her voice still tinged with frailty but stronger than I had expected. Good morning, I replied, brushing a strand of silver gold hair from her face. Did you sleep well? As well as one can, she murmured. And you? I smiled faintly, though my heart ached. I slept, though I dreamed too much. Dreams have a way of reminding us of what matters, don't they? She nodded knowingly, settling back into her chair with my daughter at her side. I watched them both for a long moment, marveling at the intimacy of their bond, the quiet understanding that passed between them without words. And then, slowly, I realized that the shadow of the whisper was beginning to creep into my daughter's behavior, small hesitations, a tighter hold on my mother-in-law's hand, an almost desperate attentiveness. I recognized it from myself. Fear had a way of coloring every gesture, every glance, every breath. I think we should take a walk today, I said suddenly, as if the words themselves might lift the weight from our hearts. The garden is in bloom, and the air is fresh. It might do us good. My mother-in-law's eyes brightened faintly. I would like that, she said. Yes, that would be wonderful. We dressed carefully, my daughter helping where she could, and moved slowly through the house, gathering jackets and scarves against the cool morning breeze. Outside, the garden was alive with color. Roses glowed in shades of crimson and soft yellow, their petals kissed by dew. Birds chirped softly from the branches above, and the faint rustle of leaves whispered secrets to the wind. I inhaled deeply, letting the scent of wet earth and flowers fill my lungs, grounding me, anchoring me to this fragile moment of life. My mother-in-law leaned on my arm as we walked, her steps deliberate, careful. My daughter followed closely, her hand brushing against mine for reassurance. We moved slowly, each step measured, a shared rhythm that seemed to echo the heartbeat of our family. And as we walked, I noticed the subtle tension in my daughter's shoulders, the quiet sadness lingering behind her eyes. She was holding back, trying to shield herself from the inevitable, but the weight of knowledge had already seeped in. Do you remember, I said softly, breaking the silence, the time we planted the sunflowers together? My mother-in-law chuckled, a soft, warm sound. Oh yes. You were determined to plant them in a straight line, and I had to explain that nature doesn't always follow our rules. And we ended up laughing, I added, smiling at the memory. We laughed so hard that our cheeks hurt. Yes, she said, her voice wistful. And that laughter, it stayed with us. It still does. I glanced at my daughter, noticing the small smile tugging at her lips. It was fleeting, but it was there, a spark of light amidst the shadows. I felt a surge of hope, fragile but undeniable. Perhaps moments like this, small and ordinary, could hold more weight than the fear that pressed against us. As we continued our walk, I noticed the subtle changes in my mother-in-law's movements, the slight stiffness in her knees, the careful way she shifted her weight, the faint tremor in her hands. Each detail was a reminder of the fragility of life, but also of its persistence. Even in vulnerability, there was strength. Even in fear, there was courage. At one point, my mother-in-law paused to touch a rose, her fingers brushing the velvety petals with a delicate reverence. She inhaled deeply, eyes closing for a moment. These roses, she murmured, they remind me that life is fleeting, yes, but beautiful. We must notice it while we can. I nodded, feeling a lump form in my throat. Yes, we must. And we will. Every moment. My daughter stayed close, her hand occasionally brushing against mine, seeking reassurance. I could feel her tension slowly easing, though not completely. She was learning, as I had, that presence could carry more weight than worry, that love could sustain even when fear threatened to overwhelm. We returned inside as the afternoon sun climbed higher, warming the house with gentle light. My mother-in-law settled back into her chair, and I brought her tea, careful not to spill. We sat together, sipping quietly, the room filled with a peaceful hush, punctuated only by the occasional sound of the clock or the soft rustle of the curtains. And then, without warning, my daughter spoke, her voice trembling slightly. "Mom, there's something else." I turned to her, sensing the tension in her words. "What is it?" She hesitated, swallowing hard. "It's about the will, about her finances. I found out something I wasn't supposed to, Anne. I don't know how to handle it." My mother-in-law's eyes widened faintly, a flicker of concern crossing her face. "What did you find?" My daughter's hands clenched in her lap. There's more than we realized. Anne, I think there are things she didn't want anyone to know yet. Secrets, hidden for years." I felt a chill run down my spine, the shadows of the room deepening despite the sunlight. Secrets. The word carried weight, heavy and dangerous. I looked at my mother-in-law, searching her face for a clue, a flicker of fear, but there was only calm, almost serene acceptance. "Life is complicated," my mother-in-law said softly. "And people hide things for many reasons. Sometimes to protect others. Sometimes to protect themselves. But the truth always finds a way to surface eventually." I nodded slowly, processing her words. There was wisdom there, yes, but also an unspoken warning. The path ahead would not be simple, not easy. Love could hold us together, yes, but secrets could also tear us apart if we weren't careful. We spent the rest of the afternoon talking cautiously, carefully navigating the delicate balance of love, memory, and unspoken truths. My daughter shared pieces of what she had discovered, and my mother-in-law responded with honesty tempered by years of experience. There was tension, yes, but also an underlying current of trust, fragile but resilient. As evening approached, I found myself reflecting on the day, on the quiet moments of laughter and fear, on the whispers that had shattered the morning and the resilience that had carried us through it. Life, I realized, was a delicate interplay of joy and sorrow, love and loss, certainty and uncertainty. And in this fragile dance, presence, truly being there for each other, was the most powerful gift we could offer. Before bed, I helped my mother-in-law settle into her favorite chair again, tucking a blanket over her knees. My daughter and I sat nearby, hands intertwined, hearts connected by unspoken understanding. The house was quiet, the candles long extinguished, and the night outside stretched dark and still. And in that stillness, I made a promise, to hold them close, to witness every moment, to love without hesitation, even as the shadows of secrets and time pressed against us. Because tomorrow, I knew, would bring new challenges, new revelations, and perhaps new heartbreaks. But tonight, we had each other, and that was enough to carry us forward. Even as sleep claimed us, I felt the weight of the day settle in my bones, a mixture of fear and gratitude, sorrow and hope. And I knew, deep in my heart, that this was only the beginning. The journey ahead would be fraught with difficult truths and raw emotion, but we would face it together, bound by love, memory, and the fragile courage that had carried us this far. The next morning, the house felt heavier, as if the air itself carried the weight of unspoken truths. I woke early, the sunlight barely spilling across the floorboards, and found my daughter already in the kitchen, staring at the counter, her hands resting flat as if she could will the world into order. She looked up at me, her eyes red from sleepless worry. "I couldn't sleep," she admitted softly. "I keep thinking about what I found yesterday." "About everything." I nodded, taking her hand gently. "I know, love. Secrets have a way of following us into sleep. They don't let go easily." She squeezed my hand tightly. "Mom, I don't know what to do. Part of me wants to confront her, to ask questions, but another part is terrified of what I might learn." I let out a small sigh, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. Sometimes the heart knows things before the mind is ready. But you don't have to face it alone. We face it together, as a family. By mid-morning, we were gathered in the living room again. My mother-in-law sat in her chair, the sunlight making the silver in her hair shimmer like a halo. She looked at us, serene, though I could see the faint lines of fatigue etched into her face. "Good morning," she said softly, her voice carrying the calm strength I had always admired. "I know something is troubling you both." My daughter hesitated, biting her lip. It's about the will. And finances. I discovered something yesterday that I wasn't supposed to." My mother-in-law's eyes didn't widen in anger or surprise. Instead, they held a quiet patience, a steady acceptance. "Ah," she said softly. "I suppose the truth has a way of surfacing eventually." I took a deep breath. "Tell us, then. We'll listen. No judgment. Just honesty." She nodded slowly. "Very well. There are things I've kept hidden, yes. Some to protect you, some to protect myself. But the time has come to share them. If not now, then perhaps never." My daughter's hands trembled slightly in mine. "Mom. I'm scared." "What will we find?" "Scared is natural," my mother-in-law said. "But fear does not diminish love. It only reminds us of what is truly precious." And so she began to speak, in her soft, deliberate way, revealing pieces of her life that had been carefully tucked away, old debts from years ago, letters she had never sent, family decisions made long before any of us were born. The words were gentle, matter-of-fact, yet each one carried the weight of decades of experience, mistakes, and choices made in the quiet shadows of life. I felt a mixture of relief and sorrow as I listened. Relief, because she had chosen to share now, under our care and witness, and sorrow, because the weight she had carried alone for so long could have been lessened if only we had known. And yet, the more she spoke, the more I understood why she had kept these things hidden. She wanted to preserve peace, to shelter us from the complexities of life until she could guide us through them safely. My daughter asked questions cautiously, trying to balance curiosity with respect. My mother-in-law answered with honesty, never defensive, never fearful. And in that exchange, I felt a deep sense of awe, both at her wisdom and at the fragile strength required to face one's past so openly. Hours passed like minutes. The sun moved across the sky, spilling golden light into the corners of the room, highlighting the dust motes dancing in the air. Each revelation carried weight, yet also brought clarity, a sense of shared understanding that tightened the bonds between us. At one point, my daughter looked at me, her eyes glistening. "Mom, do you think we can handle this? All of it?" I took her hand again, feeling the warmth, the pulse beneath her fingers. "We can. Because we face it together. Secrets, fears, even heartbreak, they have less power when we are united." My mother-in-law nodded. "And remember, life is never simple. Complexity is its nature. The key is to navigate it with love and integrity. That is all any of us can do." After the conversation, the house settled into a quieter rhythm. I helped my mother-in-law to the window, letting her lean on the sill as she gazed at the garden. The roses were in full bloom, brilliant and fragrant, the air filled with their sweetness. Birds chirped softly in the branches above, and I could feel a fragile peace settling over us. "I'm glad we had this talk," my daughter said quietly, brushing her fingers along the fabric of the sofa. "It's a relief, in a way. Knowing the truth, even if it's difficult." "Yes," I agreed. "Truth, no matter how heavy, is better than silence. Silence can isolate, but shared knowledge, shared honesty, can bind us." As afternoon approached, we moved through the house together, tidying, arranging flowers, preparing tea. Each action felt deliberate, infused with mindfulness and care. I noticed the small gestures, my daughter pouring sugar with precision, my mother-in-law adjusting a chair just so, the sunlight glinting off a crystal vase on the side table. Ordinary acts, yet filled with extraordinary meaning now that we were conscious of the finite nature of time. When evening fell, we gathered in the living room once more, candlelight flickering, casting gentle shadows across the walls. My mother-in-law reached for my hand. I am grateful, she said softly. Grateful for you, for your daughter, for this time we share. Even now, when it is fragile, it is full. I pressed my lips to her knuckles, feeling the pulse, the warmth. We are grateful too. And we will make the most of every moment, together. My daughter leaned close, resting her head against my shoulder. Mom, do you think, will it be enough? Time, I mean. To truly say everything, to share all the love. I kissed her hair softly. Time is never enough. But the presents we give, the love we offer, the attention we pay, those are eternal. That is what matters. As night deepened, I reflected on the day. We had navigated fear, uncovered hidden truths, shared laughter and sorrow. The whisper from the morning of part 1 still lingered in my mind, but it had transformed. It was no longer just a warning, it was a call to presence, to action, to embrace life fully even in the shadow of uncertainty. I realized then that this journey, the unfolding of secrets, the confrontation with fear, was shaping us all. My daughter was learning the weight and responsibility of truth, the courage required to face reality. I was reminded, once again, of the resilience of the human spirit, the capacity of love to endure even when circumstances are daunting. And my mother-in-law, she was teaching us all, without pretense or drama, that life's final chapters could be met with dignity, honesty, and grace. I looked around the room, taking in the small details, the curve of the candle flame, the soft rustle of curtains in the evening breeze, the faint smell of tea lingering in the air. Every detail felt magnified, sacred, a reminder that life, brief, fragile, unpredictable, was also full of beauty and meaning. When it was time for bed, I helped my mother-in-law settle once more, tucking a blanket around her knees. My daughter and I lingered in the doorway, hands clasped, hearts heavy but hopeful. Tomorrow, I whispered to my daughter, we face what comes, together. Whatever we learn, whatever we feel, we do it as a family. That is our strength. She nodded, tears glistening. Together, she echoed. And as I turned off the light, the house quiet once more, I felt a deep sense of resolve. The journey ahead was uncertain, shadows of hidden truths still waiting to be revealed. Yet in this fragile night, surrounded by love and memory, I knew we were ready. Ready to face what comes, ready to embrace both sorrow and joy, ready to hold each other fiercely against the tides of time. Because that is what family does. We confront fear, we witness truth, and we love without reservation. Even when the hours are too few, even when the future is uncertain, we remain present. And in that presence, there is power, there is grace, and there is enduring beauty. The morning light filtered through the curtains, pale and hesitant, as if even the sun knew not to intrude too harshly on the fragile household. I rose before my daughter and my mother-in-law, my mind heavy with the weight of the previous day's revelations. Secrets had been uncovered, truths spoken, yet there remained a quiet tension, a simmering undercurrent that I could feel in every corner of the house. I moved into the kitchen and began preparing tea, the familiar ritual grounding me. Steam curled upward, carrying the comforting scent of chamomile. I breathed deeply, reminding myself that presence, love, and mindfulness were our strongest tools against the uncertainty we faced. Yet, despite that, a small, persistent ache pressed at my chest, a whisper of unease I could not silence. My daughter joined me shortly, her expression guarded. She had stayed awake far later than I had thought, poring over documents, tracing the threads of the secrets we had uncovered. She looked at me with a mixture of fear and determination. "Mom," she said, her voice low, almost hesitant, "I think there's more. Things we don't know yet. And I don't know how to bring them up." I placed a gentle hand over hers. "We'll navigate it together. Step by step. No matter what we find, we face it as a family." By mid-morning, we had gathered in the living room again, my mother-in-law seated in her chair, her silver hair catching the sunlight like threads of moonlight. She regarded us with her usual quiet wisdom, though I could see the faint weariness behind her eyes. "Good morning," she said softly. "I know the past day has been heavy, and yet, necessary. What weighs on you now?" My daughter hesitated, glancing between us. "It's about the will, the financial matters. I've discovered discrepancies, and some letters that were hidden. It seems, someone made choices without telling anyone. And I'm not sure why." A flicker of pain passed across my mother-in-law's face, quickly replaced by calm. "Ah. The past rarely aligns neatly with our expectations. People act in ways we cannot always understand at the time. But understanding can come, if we are patient." I sensed the tension in the room deepen, subtle yet undeniable. My daughter's brows knitted, her hands tightening in her lap. "Patient," she repeated, almost as a challenge. But what if patience means ignoring the truth? What if ignoring it allows mistakes to continue? My mother-in-law leaned back, eyes thoughtful. Patience is not the same as ignorance. Sometimes it is necessary to allow space for reflection, to understand motives and intentions before passing judgment. Even when it is difficult, even when it hurts. Her words did not satisfy my daughter, and I could see her struggling to contain frustration and fear. I reached over, placing my hand on hers again. "We will learn the truth," I said softly. "And when we do, we face it together. That is what matters." The day wore on with an uneasy rhythm. I helped my mother-in-law with small tasks, preparing tea, arranging blankets, tending to the garden where the roses swayed in the gentle breeze. My daughter alternated between quiet contemplation and bouts of restless energy, pacing the room or moving from one document to another. Each movement, each glance, was loaded with anticipation, as if she feared a revelation might leap from the shadows at any moment. By late afternoon, the tension could no longer be contained. My daughter stood abruptly, her voice trembling with both anger and desperation. "Mom! I can't just sit here and pretend I understand what's happening. There are decisions made behind our backs, letters hidden, finances. It's as if someone didn't trust us enough to know the truth." I felt my heart tighten, both at her frustration and the intensity of emotion she displayed. My mother-in-law remained seated, calm yet attentive, her hands resting lightly in her lap. "Child," she said softly, "life often requires difficult choices. Trust is not always freely given, sometimes it is earned over time, sometimes withheld for protection. You are angry, and that is understandable. But anger must be tempered with understanding." My daughter's shoulders slumped slightly, but her eyes remained sharp, unwavering. "Understanding is hard when the truth is hidden," she said quietly. "I don't know who to trust anymore." I took a deep breath, feeling the familiar ache of helplessness, yet also a deep resolve. "We trust each other now," I said, voice steady. "We face what has been hidden together. That is the only way forward." The room settled again, though the undercurrent of tension remained. My mother-in-law reached for a small wooden box on the side table, lifting the lid to reveal neatly folded letters, yellowed with age. "These," she said, "contain stories, confessions, and choices made long ago. They are not intended to harm but to guide. You may read them when you are ready, but understand, they are pieces of my past, not your future." My daughter approached the box cautiously, her hands hovering over the letters. "May I?" she asked softly. "Yes," my mother-in-law replied. "Knowledge comes when the heart is prepared, not forced." She opened the first letter, and the words within revealed decisions made decades ago, misunderstandings, sacrifices, debts paid quietly, and choices intended to protect family members from pain. The revelations were startling in their detail, yet also infused with care and consideration. As she read, her expression shifted from anger to comprehension, though tears glimmered in her eyes. I understand now," she whispered. "I didn't know the reasons, but I see them. And it hurts, but it makes sense. I felt a soft relief wash over me, though tempered by the gravity of what had been revealed. The past is never simple, I murmured. We see only fragments at a time. But love, patience, and understanding, these help us make sense of it all. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting golden light across the room. My mother-in-law's face glowed with quiet pride, seeing her granddaughter wrestle with truth and emerge more aware, more empathetic. "You are learning," she said softly. And that is all I could hope for. Knowledge without wisdom is dangerous, but knowledge tempered by love, by reflection, by patience, it can guide your life. The evening passed slowly, filled with soft conversations and reflective pauses. I watched the interplay between mother and daughter, noting the subtle shifts in emotion, the release of anger, the acceptance of truth, the careful forging of understanding. Each movement, each glance, each word was infused with weight, yet also with hope. By nightfall, we had returned to our quiet routines. Teacups emptied, blankets tucked, candles flickering in the corners. My daughter leaned against me, exhausted but calmer, and whispered, "Mom, I think I understand now. I see why she acted as she did. I see why secrets were kept. And I forgive her, in my own way." I hugged her tightly, feeling her tremble against me. "Forgiveness is not always immediate," I whispered. "But understanding can begin it. And love carries us through the rest." My mother-in-law looked at us, eyes glimmering with pride and vulnerability. "The journey is never easy," she said softly. "But in honesty, presence, and love, you will find strength you didn't know you had. That is what life teaches, even in its final chapters." And in that quiet, candlelit room, I felt the fragile resilience of family, the delicate power of shared truth, and the enduring presence of love. The whisper from that first morning, the words that had shattered the air around me, "She doesn't have much time left," still lingered, but it no longer carried only fear. It carried clarity, a call to presence, and a renewed determination to embrace every fleeting moment together. Before sleep claimed us, I lingered by the window, gazing out at the garden now bathed in moonlight. The roses were silhouettes against the silver glow, petals brushing gently against the night breeze. I inhaled deeply, letting the scent of earth and flowers ground me in this fragile reality. I thought of the hours ahead, uncertain yet precious, and I felt a quiet resolve. Tomorrow, I knew, would bring further revelations, more challenges, perhaps heartbreak, but also moments of laughter, tenderness, and love. And no matter what came, we would face it together. That was the unspoken promise, the thread that held us in the storm: presence, honesty, and unwavering love. Because in the end, life is measured not by time alone, but by the moments we truly give, the love we share, and the courage to face uncertainty without losing sight of each other. And tonight, in this fragile, fleeting chapter, I understood that more clearly than ever. The morning was heavy, thick with a quiet tension that even the sunlight couldn't dissolve. I woke to the sound of my daughter pacing softly in the hallway, her steps measured but anxious. My mother-in-law remained in her chair, wrapped in a blanket, staring into the garden as if it held the answers we all sought. The house was still, yet each movement carried weight, each breath seemed amplified in the charged air. I joined my daughter, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "What weighs on you so early?" I asked softly. She looked at me, eyes bright with unshed tears. "I keep thinking about the letters, about the decisions she made. And about what hasn't been revealed yet. I feel like there's something more, something I'm missing, and it terrifies me." I nodded slowly. "Fear thrives in the unknown," I said. "But confronting it together, carefully, with patience, can illuminate even the darkest corners. You are not alone." By mid-morning, the air was charged, taut with anticipation. My daughter had gathered the letters again, laying them carefully on the coffee table. Each one seemed heavier than the last, a testament to choices made, secrets held, and lives intertwined in ways we were only beginning to understand. My mother-in-law regarded us quietly. "Some truths are easier to face than others," she said softly. "Are you prepared for what may lie ahead?" My daughter hesitated, swallowing hard. I think so. I need to know. I can't ignore it anymore." And so we began to read, aloud and together, letting each revelation fall into the quiet room like pebbles in still water. The words exposed old betrayals, choices that had been made to protect, yet also to control. There were moments of tenderness, yes, but also stark reminders that love and loyalty can be complicated, tangled with human fear and imperfection. At one point, my daughter looked up sharply, her hands trembling over a letter. "Mom, she knew about the debts all along. She didn't tell anyone. And she moved money around without consulting anyone." I felt a chill. The revelation was jarring, more than a simple oversight. It was a choice made in secrecy, a calculated action meant to shield yet simultaneously isolate. My mother-in-law looked at us with calm acceptance, though I could see a faint shadow of regret cross her features. "I acted to protect," she said quietly. "I did not intend to deceive. But I see now how it may appear otherwise." My daughter's voice rose slightly, trembling with emotion. "Protect? By hiding everything? By making decisions that affect us all without our knowledge? How is that protection?" Tears welled in my eyes, but I held them back. The intensity of her anger was justified. "Child," I said softly, "intentions and perception are often two different things. She acted out of love, but we perceive only what touches us directly. That doesn't make the pain real any less." My mother-in-law nodded, eyes brimming. "I wanted to shield you from worry, from fear, from the burdens I carried alone. I see now that in doing so, I created new burdens for you. And for that, I am deeply sorry." My daughter flinched, the raw honesty striking her like a physical blow. She pressed her hands to her face, then lowered them slowly, breathing in shallow, uneven gasps. I don't know if I can forgive that," she admitted, voice breaking. "It hurts too much to see it all now, to realize how alone we were kept in the dark." I reached out, holding both their hands. Forgiveness is not immediate. Understanding comes first. And even that is a process. But love is the thread that will carry us through this. We spent the rest of the morning in tense conversation, navigating the tangled web of secrecy and intent. Each revelation was a small earthquake, shaking the foundations of what we believed, yet also carving space for deeper understanding. My mother-in-law shared her rationale for each hidden decision, her voice steady though tinged with remorse. My daughter asked hard questions, sometimes lashing out, sometimes whispering in fear and sorrow. And I sat between them, a witness, a guide, a keeper of the fragile peace. By afternoon, the storm had calmed slightly, though the room still hummed with the weight of truth. My daughter slumped onto the sofa, exhausted from the emotional exertion. "Mom," she whispered, I think I understand now. Not completely, not yet, but the reasons are clearer. And maybe that's enough to start forgiving." I pressed my lips to her hair. "It's a start," I murmured. "Forgiveness doesn't erase pain, but it opens the door for healing. And that is what we must do, together." My mother-in-law reached for my hand, her grip surprisingly strong despite the frailty in her body. I see now that transparency, even when painful, strengthens bonds more than secrecy ever could. I only hope you can see my intentions, and perhaps find room for understanding and compassion. The rest of the day was spent in quieter reflection, punctuated by small moments of tenderness. I helped my mother-in-law to the window, letting her lean against the sill as she watched the roses sway gently in the breeze. Birds chirped softly from the branches above, and the air smelled faintly of earth and blooms. My daughter sat nearby, occasionally brushing a hand along the petals of a fallen rose, tracing the delicate lines as if seeking reassurance in nature's calm order. As evening fell, I lit a few candles, their soft glow filling the room with warmth. Shadows danced across the walls, shifting with the flickering flames, echoing the complexities of the day's revelations. My mother-in-law settled into her chair, wrapped in a blanket, while my daughter rested her head against my shoulder. "I think," my daughter whispered, voice barely audible, "that love is stronger than anger. Stronger than fear. Even stronger than hurt. But it takes courage to see it that way." I hugged her tightly. "Yes, it does. But we have courage. And we have each other. That will carry us forward." The candlelight flickered again, casting a gentle glow across my mother-in-law's face. She smiled faintly, a mixture of relief and fatigue. "The path is never easy," she said softly, "but truth, presence, and love, these are the guides we have. Even in hardship, even in the shadow of time, they will carry us." I nodded, feeling the weight of the day settle in my bones. The storm of anger, fear, and confrontation had passed, leaving in its wake a fragile, tentative peace. It was not perfect, but it was real, and it was shared. As night deepened, I reflected on what we had endured. Secrets had been revealed, anger expressed, understanding begun. My daughter had confronted both fear and betrayal, emerging wiser, though still tender. My mother-in-law had faced the consequences of her choices, offering honesty and seeking compassion. And I had borne witness, holding the space for love, grief, and reflection, guiding both of them toward clarity and connection. Before sleep claimed us, I lingered by the window, gazing at the moonlit garden. The roses were silver shadows against the night, petals trembling in the breeze. I inhaled deeply, letting the scent of earth and blooms fill my lungs. The world outside seemed still, serene, yet I knew that tomorrow would bring more challenges, more revelations, and perhaps new heartbreak. But tonight, in this quiet, fragile space, we had faced the storm together. We had endured confrontation, heartbreak, and the unearthing of secrets, and we had emerged, if not unscathed, then stronger, closer, and more deeply connected. Because that is what family does. We confront fear, we witness truth, we hold each other through pain, and we love fiercely, even when the hours are fleeting and the future uncertain. And in that love, in that presence, there is power, resilience, and enduring beauty. The morning arrived gentle and calm, a rare quiet after the storm of emotions the previous day had brought. I woke to the soft light spilling across the room and found my mother-in-law already sitting by the window, her hands folded in her lap, gazing at the garden as if watching memories bloom alongside the roses. My daughter stirred slowly on the sofa, her face pale but serene, the weight of yesterday's revelations settling into a new kind of understanding. I joined them, slipping my hands into theirs, feeling the warmth and solidity of our presence together. "Good morning," I said softly. "It's a fresh day, and we have each other. That is enough to begin again." My mother-in-law turned toward me, a faint smile curving her lips. "Yes," she said. "Enough to begin again. We cannot undo the past, but we can choose how to move forward." My daughter lifted her head, brushing hair from her face. I think I understand now. Not just about the letters, or the secrets, or the mistakes, but about why you made the choices you did. And though it still hurts, I want to try to forgive. I want to try to let it go, for us. Tears welled in my eyes, a mixture of relief, pride, and lingering sorrow. I reached over and held her hand tightly. "That is the first step," I said. "Understanding and forgiveness are not the same, but they walk hand in hand. And love will guide them." We spent the morning moving gently through the house, tending to small tasks that had been neglected, straightening chairs, arranging flowers, clearing dust from forgotten shelves. Each action, though mundane, felt infused with intention. Every fold of a blanket, every careful placement of a vase, Every soft word spoken between us carried weight, as if in these small acts we were stitching together the frayed edges of our family. At midday, we decided to step into the garden together. The roses glowed in the sunlight, brilliant and delicate, a reminder that beauty persists even through storms. My mother-in-law leaned on my arm, and my daughter stayed close, brushing her fingers along the petals of the blooms as she walked. "It's strange," my daughter said softly, "how anger and hurt can feel so enormous, and yet, in the midst of it, there can still be beauty. I never thought I'd notice the roses like this after yesterday." I smiled faintly, feeling a warmth that had been absent in the tension-filled hours before. "That's life," I said. "Even in our darkest moments, beauty finds a way to reach us. We just have to notice it. And when we notice it together, it becomes more profound, more enduring." My mother-in-law squeezed my hand gently. "You are both learning something very important," she said. "The past is never perfect. People are never perfect. But love, presence, and forgiveness, these are what make life meaningful. And you have shown me that, even now." We lingered in the garden, sharing memories and soft laughter. I told stories of my own childhood, small tales of mistakes, mischief, and unexpected kindness. My mother-in-law added her recollections, weaving our family's history into a tapestry of love and resilience. My daughter listened, sometimes interjecting with questions, sometimes simply absorbing the lessons quietly. By late afternoon, the weight of the day had lightened considerably. We returned inside, moving slowly, each of us aware of the fragile strength in our shared presence. My mother-in-law settled into her chair, and my daughter rested against me, drawing strength from our closeness. "Do you know what I've realized?" my daughter asked quietly, almost to herself. "That it's not the secrets that define us. It's how we face them. How we choose to respond, to forgive, to hold on to each other. That's what matters." I nodded, feeling a lump form in my throat. Exactly. Life will always have challenges, fears, and disappointments. But it's the choices we make in response, and the love we offer, that shape our legacy. As evening approached, we prepared a simple dinner together. The act of cooking, of chopping vegetables and stirring pots, was meditative, grounding us in the present. My mother-in-law shared tips, teaching my daughter small tricks she had learned over decades. Laughter punctuated our work, light and easy, a balm for the lingering shadows of conflict. After dinner, we gathered in the living room again. The candles were lit, flickering softly against the walls, creating a cocoon of warmth and intimacy. We held hands, forming a circle, and I spoke quietly, my voice carrying the weight of reflection. "Today," I said, "we faced the storms of the past, the weight of secrets, and the pain of misunderstanding. And yet, here we are, together, present, and still capable of love. That is what matters. Not perfection, not flawless lives, but the courage to face truth, the willingness to forgive, and the presence to hold each other through it all." My mother-in-law's eyes glistened, her fingers intertwining with mine. "Yes," she whispered. "That is all I could hope for. That is the legacy I wish to leave, honesty, resilience, and the enduring power of love." My daughter leaned against me, her voice small but steady. "I understand now. I see it all more clearly. And I want to carry this forward, the lessons, the love, the courage. For me, for us, for her." I felt a swell of pride and gratitude. "And you will. Because this is not just a lesson for today. It is a gift we carry into every moment, every choice, every relationship. Love, presence, and understanding, they will guide you long after these hours have passed." The night deepened, and we settled into quiet reflection. I watched my mother-in-law's steady breathing, the calm grace in her presence. I watched my daughter, her features softened by understanding, her heart lighter yet wiser. And I felt a deep sense of closure, a delicate peace that had been earned through struggle, confrontation, and heartfelt honesty. Before sleep claimed us, I lingered by the window, gazing out at the moonlit garden. The roses were silver shadows against the night, trembling slightly in the breeze. I inhaled deeply, letting the scent of earth and flowers fill my lungs. The world outside seemed still, serene, yet I knew that tomorrow, like every day, would hold both challenge and beauty. And I understood, more clearly than ever, that life is not measured by time alone, but by the love we share, the courage we show, and the presence we offer to those we hold dear. Tonight, we had honored that truthfully, and in doing so, we had woven a fragile, enduring tapestry of connection and understanding. I returned to my daughter and mother-in-law, taking their hands once more. "Sleep well," I whispered. "Tomorrow is another day, full of moments to cherish, to witness, and to love. And whatever comes, we face it together." They nodded, eyes closing softly, their breathing steady, calm, and trusting. And in that quiet, fragile space, I felt a deep, abiding sense of gratitude. The journey had been difficult, fraught with tension, heartbreak, and fear, but it had also been filled with revelation, reconciliation, and enduring love. Because that is what family does. We confront the shadows, we witness truth, we forgive, and we hold each other through every storm. And in that presence, there is not just resilience, but grace, beauty, and a love that endures far beyond the fleeting hours of life. The morning broke soft and still, the kind of morning that feels almost sacred. I rose early, as I always did, but this time the house felt lighter. The tension of the past days had shifted, leaving a fragile, steady calm in its place. My mother-in-law was seated by the window, a warm shawl draped over her shoulders, gazing at the garden with quiet serenity. My daughter moved around the room, her steps measured, her face calm yet illuminated with a new understanding. I paused for a moment, taking in the scene. It struck me how delicate yet powerful these moments were, the threads of love, forgiveness, and presence weaving silently through our lives. I realized that even in the shadow of time, even with the awareness of mortality pressing softly against our hearts, we had created something enduring: clarity, connection, and acceptance. I joined them, slipping my hands into theirs. "Good morning," I said softly. "It feels like we've crossed a threshold, doesn't it? Yesterday, today, we've faced storms, and here we are, together." My daughter smiled faintly, her eyes glistening. "We have," she agreed. "I feel lighter, somehow. Stronger. And I think I finally understand the lessons you've been showing us, not just in words, but in the way you hold space for us, and for her." I squeezed her hand gently. "It's never about perfection. It's about presence. Love. Understanding. That's what lasts, even when the hours are fleeting." My mother-in-law nodded slowly, a small, serene smile curving her lips. "Yes," she said. "Even in our final chapters, we can teach, we can guide, and we can love. That is the true legacy we leave behind." We spent the morning in quiet reflection, moving through small, deliberate tasks. I tended to the roses in the garden with my mother-in-law leaning on my arm, watching, guiding, and sharing gentle observations about the blooms. My daughter walked beside us, occasionally touching a petal or inhaling the scent of a flower, a quiet smile on her face. Each movement, each glance, each soft word was infused with the weight of what we had endured, and the beauty of what we had rebuilt. "I never realized," my daughter said softly, "how much courage it takes just to live openly, to face truth, to forgive, and to hold love when life is so fragile." "You've learned it quickly," I said, feeling a lump rise in my throat. "Courage isn't always loud. Often, it is quiet, steady, and persistent. It is the courage to be present, to love even when fear threatens to overwhelm us, to face truth even when it hurts." My mother-in-law reached for my hand, her grip gentle yet firm. "I have seen that courage in both of you. It is my hope, my gift, that you carry it forward, not just for each other, but for everyone whose life you touch." By afternoon, we returned inside, moving slowly through the house. We tidied together, shared tea, and lingered in conversation about stories, memories, and hopes. My mother-in-law's voice was soft, deliberate, full of wisdom, yet tinged with the fragility of time. "Remember," she said, "life is never without shadow. Pain and fear are inevitable. But they do not define us. It is how we respond, how we choose love and presence, that leaves an imprint beyond our years." My daughter listened intently, absorbing each word, her own understanding deepening. "I see now," she said. "It's not about avoiding pain or hiding from it. It's about facing it, together, with love and honesty." I nodded, tears pricking my eyes. Exactly. Life is fleeting, but love, courage, and presence are timeless. That is the essence of what we carry forward. Evening approached, soft and golden, painting the walls with gentle light. My mother-in-law settled into her chair, draped in her shawl, a faint smile of contentment on her face. My daughter and I sat nearby, our hands entwined, our hearts aligned in quiet gratitude. "I want you both to know," my mother-in-law said softly, her voice steady yet tender, "that even when I am gone, my love will remain. The lessons, the laughter, the presence, we leave these behind, not as instructions, but as guidance. You carry them in your hearts, and through you, they continue." I felt a tear roll down my cheek, and my daughter reached over to gently touch my arm. "I will carry them," she said quietly. "I will remember. I will honor them. And I whispered, will do the same. Every day, in every choice, in every gesture of love." We lingered in the quiet room, the candlelight flickering softly, shadows dancing across the walls like the memories of days long past. The air was thick with reflection, yet light with hope, the delicate balance of endings and continuity that life always offers. Later, as night fell, I walked through the house one last time before bed. I touched the frames on the walls, tracing the images of moments frozen in time, birthdays, holidays, quiet afternoons, shared laughter. Each photograph, each keepsake, carried a story, a lesson, a fragment of love. I felt the presence of the past, the weight of the present, and the promise of the future all at once. Returning to my daughter and mother-in-law, I sat quietly, listening to their breathing, the rhythm of calm and trust. "Life is not about perfection," I said softly, almost to myself. "It is about presence. About holding each other through storms, about speaking truth, offering forgiveness, and cherishing fleeting moments of beauty." My daughter leaned against me, her eyes closing in fatigue yet peace. "I understand now," she whispered. "I will try every day to live like that." My mother-in-law reached for my hand one last time that night. "And I will always be here, in your memories, in your hearts. Love persists beyond the constraints of time." I pressed my lips to her hand, feeling the pulse, the warmth, the enduring connection. "Yes," I whispered. "It persists. Always." We drifted into sleep, the room calm and serene, the faint scent of roses lingering from the garden. Outside, the night was deep, quiet, and vast, yet inside, our family held a fragile, steady light. A light born of understanding, love, and the courage to face even the harshest truths. In the quiet hours, I reflected on all that had transpired. The journey had been difficult, secrets unearthed, anger expressed, tears shed, and fear confronted. Yet, it had also been filled with revelation, tenderness, reconciliation, and a deeper understanding of the human heart. I understood now, more than ever, that life's meaning is found not in avoiding hardship but in embracing presence, love, and courage. I thought of my daughter and my mother-in-law, their hearts intertwined with mine, our pasts and futures bound together in ways both tangible and invisible. I realized that even as time presses forward relentlessly, the moments we choose to hold, the love we choose to offer, and the courage we summon in the face of uncertainty, these are the true legacies we leave behind. And so, In the quiet of that night, I made a promise to carry forward every lesson, every moment of tenderness, every act of courage and understanding. To live fully, to love fiercely, to forgive, and to be present for those I hold dear. To honor the past while embracing the future, knowing that in love and presence, we find the enduring strength to face whatever comes. Because that is life. Fragile, fleeting, uncertain, and yet infinitely beautiful. It is measured not by the hours we have but by the love we give, the courage we show, and the presence we offer to each other. And in that presence, there is resilience, grace, and a legacy that transcends time. I leaned back, closing my eyes, breathing in the gentle rhythm of our home. The whisper that had begun it all, "She doesn't have much time left," was no longer a shadow of fear but a call to embrace life fully, to cherish each fragile, fleeting moment. And in that call, we had found clarity, connection, and enduring love. As sleep claimed me, I held their hands one last time that night, a quiet anchor, a silent promise. Tomorrow would come, with its uncertainties and joys, its challenges and tender moments. And we would face it together, bound by love, presence, and the lessons of a life lived fully and fiercely. Because in the end, that is all any of us can offer: presence, love, understanding, and the courage to face life's uncertainties with hearts open and spirits unbroken. And through that, we leave a legacy far greater than any secret, far deeper than any fear. A legacy of love.